welcome back to the off-season podcast series talking about the Los Angeles Lakers and around the league. This podcast is totally opinion-based and based on my personal takes on what Rob Pelinka and the Lakers should do so they can capture the 18th championship in franchise history. Day 1 and 2 of free agency has been pretty entertaining. There has been over $1.5 billion worth of contracts negotiated, and a lot of teams have gotten a lot better, and most teams have gotten worse. But for the Lakers, they have done exceptionally well in this free agency. An A+, and that is not biased. Even though you are listening to a Lakers podcast, it is not biased. They did fantastic. First they waived Mo Bamba, and then they declined the team option on Malik Beasley, which that saved them money. So, great move by Rob. And they started off free agency signing Taurean Prince, a good forward from Minnesota last year. He agreed to a 1-year, $4.5 million contract with the Lakers. And then they went out. They signed Gabe Vincent from the Miami Heat. Very good player for the Heat last year. One of the core pieces of how they got to the NBA Finals. I'm very excited for this guy to just ball out. I see him coming first or second off the bench after Rui, behind D'Angelo. I can't wait for October when the season comes. I just can't wait. Then they went out and they got Cam Reddish. I have been a Cam Reddish fan since he was in high school, especially when he went to Duke, played with Zion, RJ, and Trey Jones. I have always been a huge fan of Cam Reddish and his shooting and his defense and his youth. That's going to be a big topic in this podcast, youth. Lakers need big-time youth. They got Jackson Hayes from the Pelicans. I mean, youth. Exceptional by Rob. I would have preferred Brook Lopez over Jackson Hayes, but this is still a very good move by Rob. Youth, length. He can try to stop Jokic and Embiid, all these other bigs in the East and the West. I've always liked Hayes out of Texas, and then he was a little feisty in New Orleans, but I think he's a great addition to this team. And then they did the necessary. They re-signed Rui Hachimura to a 3-year, $51 million deal. Perfect. Got him for 3 years. That's a big window. Then they got Austin Reeves, the big boy. Austin Reeves, 4 years, $56 million. He's the future of this team. He's one of the core pieces, even after LeBron. He's going to be huge this year. Then D'Lo, 2 years, $37 million. That is cheap for D'Angelo Russell. I think he made 20-some last year. This is only around a $19 million deal. He took a pay cut, and that is much appreciated. I'm pretty sure the Lakers still have room for 2 more roster spots. So comment down below what veterans they need to bring in to round up this roster. The Lakers did lose Troy Brown Jr. to the Timberwolves, which I'm fine with. He was a solid piece for us in the regular season, but not in the offseason. Some other big-time free agents that signed on the first day was Draymond Green signed a 4-year, $100 million deal to go back to the Warriors. Big time for them. Keep that dynasty. I kind of knew that this was going to happen after they traded Jordan Poole to the Wizards, but it's just it's a piece for the Warriors that they need. Victor Oladipo picked up his $9 million option, but he was actually traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for picks, which is interesting. Joe Harris was then traded to the Pistons for 2 first or second round picks. Don't have that down. Karis LeVert is going back to the Cleveland Cavaliers on a 2-year, $32 million deal. Kyle Kuzma signed a 4-year, $102 million deal to stay with the Wizards. I was very surprised on this. Kobe White signed a 3-year, $40 million deal to stay with the Bulls. Keita Bates-Diop, 2-year, $5 million deal to go to the Phoenix Suns. Suns are rounding out some okay role players. It's an interesting. They signed Yuta again. This comeback with KD and Yuta back from their Brooklyn days. They're going to be an interesting team to watch out for next year. Bruce Brown, who I actually thought he was going to sign with the Lakers, signed a 2-year, $45 million deal to go to the Pacers. George Niang from the Sixers signed a 3-year, $26 million deal to go to the Cavs. Jeremy Grant is staying with Portland, 5-year deal for $160 million. Kyrie Irving, I thought he was going to end up in a Laker uniform, but my hopes went down the drain once again. As a Lakers fan, it happens a lot. 3-year deal, $126 million. Chris Middleton staying with the Bucks, 3 years, $102 million deal. A lot of trades that happened. Max Strus was traded to the Cavaliers it was a 3-team deal. The Heat received second-round pick. The Spurs received, I believe, Cedi Osman, Lamar Stevens, and some picks. Very interesting day on the first day and second day of free agency. As many of you know who's listening to this podcast, Damian Lillard requested a trade out of Portland. It's about time. I feel very bad for Lillard. He wants to win in Portland, but he just can't. It's a small market team. He's been there since he was drafted. It's not going to happen. Sadly, it's about time. They have 3 young stars. We're going to see if Scoot Henderson's going to be a star, but Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons in that backcourt, I think they're going to be still a very low market team for years to come. But I've thought of a couple spots where Dame could go. But my first is the Miami Heat. He prefers to go to Miami. I think it's less likely for him to go to Miami since, they lost Max Strus, Victor Oladipo, Gabe Vincent. Their pieces are, so it's going to be harder for a sign and trade for those guys. But they still have pieces in Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. And Pat Riley doesn't just hand out first-round picks. He has them in his holster on his side. I think Miami, it probably is the front runner after I literally just said it's less likely for him to go. But Miami, I think, has a 95% chance of getting Damian Lillard. Next team is the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are interesting team in here because they think they have James Harden to trade, but I don't think the Trailblazers are going to want a James Harden contract or James Harden ego or James Harden in general, because James Harden is going to stunt the growth of Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, and Shaedon Sharpe. So those are the main guys on that team that need to grow. But they also have Jeremy Grant, who just signed a 5-year deal, $160 million. So that's interesting that Lillard kind of requested it right when he signed that deal. So I guess we'll have to see about the Sixers. They'll have to give Maxey, but then that gives an overabundance of the point guard position for Portland. It's going to be an interesting week. I don't see him getting traded in the next week. Of course, probably when this podcast is out, he's going to be traded, just with my luck. But another team I'm thinking about is the San Antonio Spurs. This is a big-time dark horse. They usually get homegrown stars, except when they got Aldridge and then DeMar DeRozan, but then they later traded them away or retired. I think this is a good mentor for Victor Wembanyama, but if they want to win now, they think Victor is already ready to be a number 1 or 2 option on an NBA championship team. It's going to be interesting on how Greg Popovich and the Spurs do this. They don't have that many picks, they probably have a lot of picks from that DeJounte Murray trade, but they don't have many assets and players. They have Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, but that's pretty much it. Jeremy Shohan, but I don't think Trailblazers need another forward. The Knicks are a very interesting team in this sweepstakes. They're always in these big-time sweepstakes. They were in there with Donovan Mitchell last year and probably every other sweepstakes in the last 20 years. They have the assets. Quentin Grimes isn't really a huge asset, but he could be a trade piece. They have picks. They have the cap room. They have Julius Randle that they could trade. He could pair Lillard with Jalen Brunson, and I really think that would be a very good backcourt for the Knicks. Thank you for listening to the Lakers off-season podcast. There will be 2 episodes per week as we ramp up for the start of the season and summer league.